So here we are, Wednesday morning, January 29th, 2025. This is an unscheduled coffee rant, I guess. So I've seen where they have, I guess now, the tech giant guy, headman, Elon Musk is being put in charge of the Office of Personnel Management. And I heard Trump has offered early buyouts to all federal employees. And Office of Personnel Management is the retirement HR faction of all federal employees. Don't know what to think about that. I know this is the party that pretends to not like government. So we'll see where that goes. As private corporations and government mold together to kind of take over everything. And this turning anarchy thing here, I mean, it's not anarchy. Anarchy's bad. That's chaos. I mean, it stands for the Avengers. Or abolitionists would be better. What do we got there? No, put that off. Let's go with this instead. And let's turn that off. Let's just keep it like that. That's better. So last week I did on my regular Revolution.radio coffee rants with Dan at 9 o'clock every Thursday morning. I did a pretty good show, I was told. And one of the things I talked about was narcissists. And I triggered some people with that. Go figure. I want to clear something up. The word narcissist is thrown around so excessively on social media. And there's all these like social media psychologists who think they really know something about human psychology. And they don't. They're meme educated. I'm not saying I haven't seen memes that aren't true or that I'm like, hey, that's kind of true. But I don't want to get it twisted here. I've done a lot of research at 53 years of age and having dealt with so many people in the public throughout the years in different law enforcement capacities and having been a coach and a trainer and just having dealt with so much stuff, you kind of get knowledgeable in human psychology. But I went a step further and actually self-educated myself through research, through reading lots of books and lots of reading. The 49 Laws of Power. I can get into all these different books. The Gift of Fear by Gavin D. Becker, which he was a criminal psychologist. When I worked in the prison, I talked to two caseworkers and criminal psychologists on the regular. I was fascinated by it. So this has been an area of actually self-study. And, I've also attended workshops and watched videos. The internet's a powerful tool. I mean, this is the age of information, and there's a lot of information you can get from the internet and from videos. And when you think about how a person gets those fancy initials behind their last name, now I'm not claiming to be a psychologist. I'm not. I just understand human psychology, and I wouldn't lightly throw the word narcissist around. So, in other words, if somebody has normal self-interest, they care about themselves and they're worried about how they're going to make a living or what they're going to do for A, B, and C, and they have what I would be considered just a healthy ego, and they create healthy boundaries for people who like to take advantage of them, and they're assertive in that. That's not a person who's a narcissist. Let's not get it twisted. You get into an argument with somebody because you guys are seeing something different. That doesn't mean they're automatically a narcissist. We want to put all these labels on people to try to, I'm smart and right and you're dumb and wrong. Like, it's stupid, okay? I don't just arbitrarily will label somebody a narcissist. The person that I was talking about in particular will never admit they're wrong. They'll never apologize when they are wrong. The person's reaction to their bad behavior becomes a central issue. I've seen a complete breakdown where they just completely break down once their narcissistic mask has fallen off. And I've also seen them stay in codependent relationships and abuse drugs and alcohol to a great degree. They care greatly about their image, but on the inside, they're just screwed up. And I don't think the person I'm talking about isn't somebody who's not healable or curable. I don't think narcissistic disorder of certain kinds is totally uncurable. I think it's very curable. I think it's a defense mechanism for a lot of people with abandonment issues. And that's what I thought that was in my particular opinion. And it's just an opinion. And remember, these practices are called practices. And these people with initials behind their names took an interest in it. They studied. They regurgitated back what the books told them. And they ended up getting a degree they did, an externship, internship, what have you. And, they write a 10,000 word dissertation to earn their PhD. Well, I've done all those same studying. I've done all the same research. Maybe not to the great degree that they have, and some of them really specialize in certain parts of the psyche. I'm not like that. I don't consider myself a psychologist or anything, but I'm well educated on it. And how do they, they get these initials behind their names, and all I have to say is everybody currently in Washington, D.C., running our country, all have college degrees and initials behind their names. Everybody that was involved in the cooties and the jabs all had initials behind their names. How's that working out for us so far? They don't like people who self-study. They just don't. They don't like people who self-study and can't be fooled very easily. So I thought I would throw that out into the collective. I don't try to pretend I'm something I'm not. And something else I see that is from the ego, and I see this, and I've talked about this once before, and it's from that ego gone rogue. It's from that part of you that wants to jump out because of insecurity. Everyone's done it. I'm not immune to it. I'm not trying to pretend I'm, floating around here like some Buddha. And not when I've used as much profanity as people have heard me use, and not with all the bad habits I've had and the train wreck I have been, and I've put that out there into the collective. I'm not ashamed of any of it anymore. The weaponization of shame is ridiculous. And it's still weaponized against people. Something that I've seen that is a problem in the spiritual community and spiritual teachers or gurus and in the freedom community, and in the very best of cases, if you understand what true freedom is, that is true spirituality, they overlap. And I see this a lot, and as soon as I hear certain key words, I tune out. And those words are usually some spiritual teacher who's got a good following or larger following, says something along the lines of, the problem with the spiritual community is, I start to zone out because their ego's automatically involved. They've made it to a certain level, and one of the 49 laws of power state, that's another book on psychology and how the human psyche works, that when you make it to a successful point, you need to zealously guard your six for up-and-comers because you don't want to be overtaken. And their ego makes them do that, especially those people who are making money and they're making their living and making a really good living off of self-help. They're helping themselves a lot. The field's well named. But I don't blame the field for existing when you've got so many psychopaths who are in the psychology field who will do what they're told to do for a paycheck in many instances. I've seen this firsthand. I worked for a federal medical facility that had really dark psychologists working there. I know all about y'all, okay? So Or in the freedom community, I'll hear somebody say, well, the problem in the so-called freedom community is. I believe a lot of times when that's being stated, they're not speaking to content creators in general. They're speaking to people who follow and share the content in the freedom community, want freedom, but aren't doing anything to try to help get freedom. And that's, I understand that frustration because everybody is kind of widespread. Then there's more passive aggressive ways that people will try to say the problem with the freedom community is it's more passive aggressive, but it's still said in a way that I understand kind of what they may be getting at, and it comes from a space of ego. And it really just creates division. Nobody to me is set higher than anybody else who's speaking out, and that was made abundantly clear to me when I was kind of like awestruck, I guess you could say, or starstruck. I don't know how you would put it, but when I interviewed David Icke a few years back, the first 5 minutes I was like, Wayne and Garth from Wayne's World with Alice Cooper when they're like, I'm not worthy. The first 5 minutes, I admit, I was a little bit like, wow, I'm talking to David Icke. This is a man I really, really respect. And, to another degree, when I called in and I talked to Mark Passio, it was the same thing. When I met him in person and shook his hand, you look up to these people, but then you realize, wow, these are other human beings just like you. They've been doing this longer and they deserve some respect. But they're other human beings just like you trying to get freedom. And within 5 minutes, the conversation with me and David Icke was normal. It was regular. I felt nothing. It was just a good, normal conversation. I imagine that would be like, I'd be like that with anybody who wants freedom. I think it's a exercise in futility to talk about other content creators if they're putting out a righteous word and they're doing something in the world, making videos, making podcasts, doing a radio show, writing a couple books, or speaking outside of the echo chamber. There's an echo chamber within the freedom community and within the spiritual community, but within the freedom community, and if you're speaking at an anarchist event about anarchy, they know what anarchy is. You don't have to explain it to them to a great degree. I think the problem lies, personally, is that we are all so separated. It's hard to even come together for an online event when you've only got maybe 1,000 people who know what's really happening in the world and in the community, and not even that many content creators, just that many people who actually know, let's just say, to a good enough degree to where they should be making content and they're not. It's hard enough to get them together for a large online thing, much less in person. I think a really good idea would be to get everyone together for an in-person event at some type of something public that would actually make other people think. One of the things that I did, and I've done in the last couple of years, and I know I haven't done it enough, way less than I could be. And it's useless to talk about plans and this and that because things change, and I don't really at this point, and this psychology says this too, don't talk about what you're going to do, just do it, which is what I've been doing for the most part, because once you say it, your ego gets satisfied that it's been accomplished, and it kind of pushes it to the side as far as like local things are concerned for me, or for anybody. But one of the things that I think would help is if we had something to get together for and went out and got together for it. That would help because we're all spread out. So talking about I just think when you start speaking bad about other people in a community in this world that's in disarray, it's not only bad karma, it's disheartening. So and it can be for a lot of people trying to do this work. Someone else starts saying something and its undertones are something that are negative, and that's coming from a guy who cusses and stuff and points at the camera and does all this crazy stuff on here, all this crazy shit on here. In case I want to play this on Revolution Radio, which I do sometimes, I don't want to swear on this one. I'm not allowed to say, there's a few words I'm not allowed to say, and one of them just got a real hold on me, so I got to be careful when I get going because I say it a lot. But one of the things I did maybe 3 or 4 times, or maybe 4 times now in the last like 4 years, so it's not enough, is I spoke outside the echo chamber. I was interviewed by people who weren't part of the so-called, I'm going to say so-called, freedom community. They just wanted their variant of freedom, like they were Republicans, rooting for this or rooting for that, but fascinated at a voluntarist's take on things, fascinated at my personal story as a cop turned anarchist. So I have spoken out. You know, one of them had a live, nationally syndicated audience that I got to field normie questions. I've done this a few times, and I think other people are doing it too. It could be frustrating. It could be frustrating for people, and that's what I see when I look in and I see someone making a video and saying the problem with the so-called freedom community is this and is that and is this and is that. It's not constructive. Like, if you're addressing the freedom community as a whole, sure, the problem is, you know, it is the my freedom community, because that's really all I see people caring about. I get it, but just differentiate between those who make content and put their names and faces out there versus those who won't make, you know, do that. I've had my name and face out there since 2019. You know, I have nothing to hide. I'm not really good at ops. When I sense something is contrived, I will back out of it. When I sense bad feelings or juju from somebody, I'll back out of it. If I feel like I'm being tested in some kind of way, I've been out there well before this past year, and I'll be out here well after, God willing. It's just something to think about. It really is. It's something to think about, because some of the stuff that I see, and it's a little more prevalent in the spiritual community. It's ego. Really, when you think about it, and they want to talk about this ego death, and they start talking about other spiritual teachers, that's your ego. Unless it's constructive. If you give some type of constructive advice to a content creator, maybe adjust your message a little bit in this way. Maybe if we adjusted our message a little bit in that way. You know, that's one of the things I like about all the natural law teachers that are out there. They all have got their own unique way of teaching it. Some teach it in a humorous way. Some teach it through music. Some teach it, you know, they cram it down your throat. They're like football coaches or drill instructors. Guys like me are like a little bit in between. I'm not always like that, but sometimes I am. And I think all these different approaches to teaching the actual problem and the actual solution. The problem is people aren't living according to natural law, the Creator's actual laws. And the solution is people need to start living in accordance with those laws. I mean, the solution and the problem and the solution are right there next to each other. It's really that simple. But it seems to be hard because of the human ego, because of greed, because of our propensity to think with our lower brains and go to violence. And what I'm seeing personally, just everywhere with what's happening in the world, is this. Just they got their blinders on, hoping nothing's going to happen. Which is why I'm starting to cater a lot of what I'm going to be talking about towards surviving in a world that's going to be getting a little nuts. There's going to be skills you need to have and backup plans you should have, and I'm going to continue to talk about those things. But if there's ever a thing that can get us all together, that'd be great for, you know, cooperation, leadership through example, non-violent activism. Don't give them an excuse, because they're going to use whatever excuse they can use to take away more freedoms. We got to understand what the end game is. I watched some of David Icke's work. He's got a real good grasp, as far as I'm concerned, on what the end game is. And something else that I said on my show, and I want to say this again, it can't be said enough. I am not egoically attached to anything that I currently know or believe as far as what I believe. See, all my decisions, all my hypotheses, and all my theories come from research and intuition. The sacred masculine, research, the sacred feminine, intuition. I put those together and I form an opinion. Now, there are certain things I know are facts and are objective, and you won't change my mind on those things. Freedom is our birthright, that's objective. Natural law, karmic law, cause and effect, just like gravity, it's objective, it's science, it exists. You won't change my mind on those things. But I'm talking more about other things with extraterrestrials, or you name a dozen different things that I have an opinion on based on research and intuition, and I'll have things come to me. It's called claircognizance, where something comes to you, you don't know why, and then you find out later that you were right, either through something that happened, or, I'm not talking clairvoyance, that's different, or you research it afterwards, and you're like, oh wow, I was right about that. So that happens a lot. But if something was to present itself to me to change my mind on some belief that I have based on my research, I'm not egoically connected to it. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to change my narrative. But the number one narrative is that of freedom. Okay? I talked about yesterday, I filled in for Levolution on Revolution.radio. Their shows every Tuesday at 5 p.m. And one of the things I talked about yesterday was the whole Democrat and Republican thing, the Demopublicans and the Republicrats, and how that dynamic is there just to keep us divided, how they're working together. And if you listen to them argue, if you talk to any political pundits, they want to just vote for the lesser of two evils, or they'll say, hey, yeah, you're right about that, but you say something to them that, it's what's going on. Yeah, but, well, you just admitted that they're both evil, so why are there the yeah buts? I should do a whole show called No Yeah Buts. Voting for the lesser of two evils is still evil, especially when they're working together. My main question yesterday was, hey, how come 5 years ago they worked so well? The whole world, all the governments worked so well together in locking us all down and making us wear diapers. We were made to social distance for safety. And the governments worked so well together. Very well together. Remember, I'm putting this on or on YouTube, so I'm trying to be careful on how I speak about those things. Doesn't matter who's in office now. The same algorithms are out there. My posts on Facebook are still buried at the bottom of the feeds. It does not matter what reptilian we have running whatever and saying whatever. Not a lot has changed, and not a lot will. You'll see. But they worked so well together. And now, 4.5 years later, there's a world war. How did all these nations that were working so well together all of a sudden are at war? And there's no agenda in place? Everything's being bought up. Rent prices are through the roof. House prices are through the roof, to the point where only, subsets of certain companies like BlackRock and other ones, they're buying up all the houses. You got to rent through leasing companies, not through landlords. And landlords, y'all use leasing companies because you don't want to be bothered with the tenants, not realizing they jack up the rent and they tell you this is the good thing. You're still paying them that whatever 20% the whole time the place isn't rented. So they're making money, you're not. I don't care what they promise you. And then after 2 years, they get rid of a good tenant because they want to get another deposit. It's all about them making money. You get the same tenant in there, you might only be able to up his rent $150 maybe in a 10-year period, but you've got a solid 10 years of income. They don't want this. That's just a side note that I'm dealing with in my personal life. But yeah, that's just the note that I wanted to say on narcissism. You know, if you're like a mentally ill alcoholic, cutting yourself, living in your mom's basement, never apologizes, never admits they're wrong, and tries to gaslight people and project their crap onto other people, that's an actual narcissist that needs help. If you're somebody who's setting healthy boundaries because you're being taken advantage of, and you ghost somebody because they're doing that, well, and you really ghost them. This isn't somebody you're going to mess with again until there can be some type of resolution later on. If you run into them and they've changed, well, that's healthy. To me, that's having a healthy ego and a healthy sense of self. That's not being a narcissist. If you ghost family members just because you did something wrong to them and you want to show them, you don't matter to me. And again, I don't worry about getting ghosted. I myself am the type of person that I'll only try to talk to somebody 2 to 3 times, and usually only twice. But I'm not going to bother somebody beyond that because they're either busy or they simply don't want to be bothered with me. So I get ghosted, that's fine. I turn into Casper. Ghosting's a big problem now. That's what people do to try to get control of relationships. It's the people you love and family members, and especially if you do it to a grandparent or something like that, that is really... it's psychological terrorism. It's terrible. You're not a good person if you do that. Quite frankly, I think you're a coward. I call it bitch-assness. See, the only reason why I'm saying this is because I know this is allowed on revolution.radio. There's just 3 words I'm not allowed to say. And because of the FTC, Federal Communication, FCC, Federal Communications, whatever. It's federal and they care about humanity. Blowing up children is fine, and killing and murdering and slavery, no problem. Just don't use adjectives to describe your disdain. Don't use the F word. Don't call people retards for blindly following political gods that they worship. I'm not going to give away my authority, my internal monarchy, to these people, okay? And neither should none of us. So one of the things that I think as a community is we have to give each other a little more leeway in certain things. Everyone's stressed. It's hard for people to get together. We live in all different parts of the country. And I wouldn't mind having a backup plan when stuff hits the fan where we can go on a tour. I like how some people are doing things and they're going on tours and talking to different people. And they're doing different things in their area. That's important to do. So you have people you can plan with in the event of an emergency that are in your area. I don't think the freedom community, when you've only got, I mean, there's probably 100,000, 200,000 people in this world that really know what's going on. Maybe 500,000. But out of 8 billion, it's a drop in the bucket. And how many of them are actually content creators? Getting their name, face out there on a consistent basis. Who aren't afraid to show themselves. Who aren't afraid to talk. That's I may go by the moniker spiritual anarchist, but I put my real name, Daniel Arnold, behind that. I wouldn't even be using the words. I wouldn't even be hyphenating those two if everyone didn't think that anarchy meant chaos. I have to hyphenate it because anarchy just means without a ruler. Literally, that's what the etymology of the word is. If you look it up, the original Greek, it means without a ruler. Doesn't mean without rules if you follow natural law. And if you think about, and I've had people try to tell me, I have to pick a side. I've chosen humanity. Humanity needs to assemble. I've chosen my side. I choose humanity, not those that would force the puppets to enslave us. Because this isn't human driven, this whole thing. I've said this before, I'll continue to say it. It's not human driven. I followed Dr. Stevens' Greer work. I've read certain books that talk about a fake alien invasion to galvanize, that military industrial complex to usher in a new world government. They're doing that already with everything else they're doing. Some of you have a certain hero who's got thousands and thousands of low-hanging satellites being launched. The front man for that area of what they're doing. And those things, besides being surveillance, the satellites could be good surveillance technology, but besides that, they could also be sending signals to 5G towers that are all over the place. 6G are currently being built, 7G's in the chamber. Okay, electric magnetic frequency. Our brains have these electrical synapses going on, and there's an it goes down my spine. I can make it goes through my arm to move. I mean, we could be affected by that without a chip in our brain to a certain degree. So if they're putting chips in our brains, and our population is dwindling because of war and diseases and other things like that, and other, jabs and stuff, right? What's left, they want to put chips in. Have smart cities. They're supposed to build 10 smart cities. I think we have a bright future, technologically speaking, in some ways, because technology can be used just like this microphone can be used. It can be used to spread some type of real wisdom, some type of real knowledge. It could be used to spread hate and division. Martin Luther King was trying to, during the movement to bring freedom to humanity, because he was talking unity, he was assassinated. When Malcolm X was considered a black militant, everybody was like, rah, 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 because, see, here's the thing. Confrontation sells. It's entertaining. So when I see content creators trying to create conflict by saying certain things, even if it's undercover and passive aggressive, it's just another way of creating a little bit of conflict. This conflict entertains. It draws people. This is why you got the Logan Paul, the Paul sisters, the Logan Paul brothers, who are out there distraction-tainment and doing what they're doing. And I'm not afraid of anybody on this planet. I've died twice. I served in the United States Marine Corps. I've done a lot of other things. I've worked in a closed maximum security prison. I don't care who you are. If you're helping them by being distraction-tainment, you're trash. Make all the money you want. If you're even human, I'm speaking to a whole bunch of different people out there. I think we got some reptiles amongst us folks. That's a little bit of humor. It's just a joke. I'm joking. There's no reptiles amongst us. Come on. Hell, just up until a few years ago, extraterrestrials were completely denounced by our government. So our government never lies to us. They always got our best interest in mind. Right? Of course they do. But that was just a little thought that I wanted to throw out into the collective. I wanted to just clear a few things up. If you happen to be in the psychology field and you're offended by somebody who doesn't have initials by their names, speaking on psychological issues that they've studied in depth, I don't care. I don't care. I'm not spreading any information that will hurt anybody. I'm spreading information that is people need to know. Not all narcissists, not all people are narcissists, and not all narcissists who are actually, I use the term, and I've read this term, so this kind of narcissism exists. defensive narcissistic disorder, they're not bad people. They could be rehabbed and taught. But once they could admit what no one else is able to admit in the world right now, I was wrong. As soon as people could say those hardest 5 words to say in any language, I was wrong, I'm sorry, and really mean it, after some self-reflection and introspection, that kind of narcissism is curable. It's like being an alcoholic. What's the first thing you have to do? You have to admit you have a problem with it. From there, you can start going through the cycle of getting off of it, and there'll be some relapse. It's the same with any addiction. What's an addiction? I had an addiction. I had a problem with porn. It is an attempt to get out of this reality you're not jiving with and live in the moment in an unhealthy way. It's what all addictions are. I don't care what the addiction is. It could be shopping, it could be gambling, it could be a sexual addiction, it could be an addiction to anger that people will get the adrenaline rush off of, so they want to be angry on purpose, because anger is this more powerful emotion than shame or being wrong. So, yeah, those are my thoughts for today. And I might play this on my radio show. I'm going to put this out as a little coffee rant with Dan, and try to fix up something that I messed up on the radio show last night, a technical issue with trying to play a note on love from 5 years ago that I made, part of my near-death experience in 2017, which did change a lot. But again, the ego is, that garden has to go back, and it needs to be weeded from time to time. We're all human. Welcome to humanity, man. So, with that said, I just want to wish everybody nothing but a good rest of the week. It's Wednesday. We're at the halfway point. Nothing but love to all of humanity. And I hope humanity can assemble and stand up to the authoritarian, totalitarian regimes that want to create a one-world government without us having the higher consciousness necessary to become a one-world civilization without borders. Seems like they don't want that. Anyway, till next time, man. Stay safe. Peace.